Hello, butterflies, and welcome to another magical story. I am here today with Danielle DeBay.
Hello. Hi there.
So Danielle's going to share with us today how magic has shown up in her life so that she can give us all an example of how magic shows up everywhere throughout our lives. And just a reminder, I'm going to be sharing one a month from either me, a friend of mine like Danielle, or maybe even you. If you feel like you have a magical story to share, I would love to hear it. You can jump on video with me, or you can just share it written out, and I will share it on video for you. Danielle and I know each other through our life coach training course, and we have been in sister circle together for a year and a half. So we know each other pretty well. And we also have been coaching each other back and forth now for a year. And she is just an amazing person, and I can't wait to hear what she has to share with us about magic. So thank you so much for being here today, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I love that you're presenting this to people and that you are asking other people to share their pieces of magic, because I think that's so important for, even just for ourselves to really see how that's showing up for other people, because I think then we start to really notice it a lot more. So that's part of like what magic means to me anyway, is recognizing how it's showing up not only in my life, but how it shows up in other people's lives as well. So anytime you or any other people that I know, they share instances of, coincidence or synchronicity, I really relate those back to magic, because to me, that's what's magical. It's those moments where you couldn't have planned for something like this. It's making the impossible possible. If you would have tried to have lined up these specific things to make this one thing happen, probably wouldn't have worked. But because it's completely out of my control, the universe has made this possible for me. And I kind of define magical moments as the pieces or the times where you can't explain how or why something happens, but it shows up for you in a way that you could have never even thought possible. So really, it's like the impossible becomes possible, or not even the impossible, because you think things are impossible. It's like the things you never thought, you could have never dreamed something up, that becomes real. So yeah.
And something that's popping into my head is, even though it's there for you and it's personal too, like it comes to you and it feels so personal as well, like you couldn't have imagined and planned it.
Yeah, it really is. The other piece to that, you touched on a really good point, is I feel like that specific thing or that moment or that experience was meant specifically for me. And that if somebody else were in my shoes, maybe they wouldn't have seen it or noticed it or understood it the same way I did.
Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's like right there, a gift for you. Exactly. In that moment.
Yeah. A gift is such a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so, some examples that I kind of see in general that happen around me are like, I have a really good example that it's just like these little things of, I was talking to a woman at the yoga studio I go to, and I had recommended her for something that I had done. It was an article for something, and I was like, oh, I really want to recommend her. And I wasn't going to let her know until she got it, because it's one of those sort of surprising things. And then the article came out, and I told her about it. And then I was like, well, I'll just let her know that I shared that, shared her name to be featured also. And then she tells me, oh, that's something that I've been trying to call in more of. And I said, oh, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But it's those little things of like, it was her magic, but I was able to recognize that this was something she had thought about and had been wanting to. And without me knowing, I helped sort of cultivate that for her in one little small way. So I love when I see it in others too. I don't have to be a part of that at all. I just love it when they're like, oh, I was just talking about this thing. So that's really what it is. It's like, you know, talking about the friend, or I really like it when it has to do with like products too, where it's like, oh, you know, I feel like I need something like this. And then all of a sudden you get an email.
Yes.
And you don't say it out loud, because there is something to be said about like our phones listening to us. So that's a whole different story. So when it's in your head and you're like, oh, I feel like I need something like this, and an email shows up, or somebody tells you about something, or you see a billboard for something, it's like those things really pop out at you once you sort of ask yourself what it is that you're looking for. So I love that. Those are definitely like magical moments that I see, not only for myself, but for other people too. Yeah.
Exactly. I love those things.
Yeah. And then something else that, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is, but it's whether or not we're recognizing them, and whether you call it a synchronicity or just magic.
That's true.
I like both. I think I think there are more magical moments, and synchronicities, we tend to sort of adhere them to bigger things for some reason. I'm not sure why, but that's just kind of how I've seen it, even for myself.
That's true.
But magic, it's sort of like those moments. It's those small little snippets that lead to the bigger synchronicities. Yes.
Exactly. I love
it. Yeah. And then one of those things for me, which I'll call, really it's the magic piece of it, is, you know, when I see bees for me are, they're just, for some reason, they're sort of like my symbol of, you are exactly where you are meant to be. And I know they're everywhere, but there's like when they start buzzing around me. So like I can see them and it might not have that much meaning. But if it's like one bee here, that's, you know, whether it's on like a poster or something like that, or they're buzzing around me, and I'm like,
getting your attention.
Okay, yes. And I really recognize where I'm at that moment, and what I'm doing and how I'm feeling, because for me, it is a reminder of, you are exactly where you need to be, and this is what you're meant to be doing at this exact moment.
Yes. I love those little magical symbols that represent that. I think everybody has at least one of those things.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. Like,
it's so fun.
Rainbows, for instance, has been something popping up recently for me. So, and I know about your little bee symbol for you, and I just love that. Bees are amazing. I love that that's a symbol for you.
I'll even share, I mean, it's not mine, but I was talking to a friend because I told her about my bees, and she was saying like, oh, I wonder what mine would be. And I said, well, what are you drawn to? Like, what's something that like really sticks out to you? And she's like, hummingbirds, right away, without fault. And she moved. And as soon as she moved from Arizona to Southern California, in her back patio area, her balcony, all of a sudden she kept seeing all of these hummingbirds.
Amazing.
And I was just like, that is so perfect. Again, you're exactly in that, you know, the exact apartment that you need to be in at this moment for now. So I thought it was so beautiful. Like, even just her sharing that with me, I thought it was so amazing.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And then, did you have a certain other story specifically that you wanted to share? You kind of shared a story already.
Yeah. Well, I actually have, it's a little bit bigger in the sense that there are so many pieces involved with it that I and it happened recently that I feel like I want to
Wonderful.
share this also.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so just a couple of weeks ago, we decided to take a trip. So I'm in Southern California, and about an hour and a half away is the city of Ojai. And I had never been, I don't know why, it's only an hour and a half away. But usually we end up driving up the coast and we don't go inland a little bit. But I had been feeling called to Ojai a lot more recently. So we were trying to plan something, whether it's going to be by the beach, and nothing really felt right. I kept looking at Airbnbs and hotels in different places, and nothing really, it just felt sticky and like not really where I was supposed to be going. And then I looked into Ojai and I was like, okay, let's start with Airbnbs again. And nothing was really standing out. I was like, not so good. So I was like, okay, let's see if there's any good hotels. And I landed upon one that I was like, oh, this looks fun and a little hip, and they've got a pool. Cool. Okay, let's just check this one out. And we booked it, and about an hour later, I saw that they were having a pool party the day that we arrived, and I was like, oh, perfect. Now we have something to do also. And then, so we got there early and we did some stuff around the town, and then we checked in, and it was about 5 minutes after check-in, but our room was like not quite ready, meaning she probably needed to look over it once real quick and it was done. But just from going and then talking to one of the employees who was sitting right there, because it wasn't ready, he was like, oh, here, have 2 free drink tickets at the bar. I was like, oh, that's wonderful, because definitely was not expecting anything like this and didn't have any issues about having to wait 5 minutes to get into our room. Right. And then, the other thing about this place is, I think we both do this. We'll clear space and we clear our area and our energies. And right away, at the front desk, they had free Palo Santo sticks for you in your room. And I was
Especially
like, oh,
important in a hotel room where
exactly.
Many people are in and out. Yes, I love clearing the space.
Exactly. And I was like, oh, you are just like
amazing.
Navigating me towards exactly what I need to do anyway. Beautiful. And then, so we decided to go to the bar. We're like, okay, let's go get our free drink while we wait then. And we knew it was only going to be 5 minutes, and the pool party thing had started. So we get a drink and we're sitting down, and I was like, okay, our room's probably ready. I'm going to go change, save our spots. So I go and change, and I come back, and there's someone sitting in my spot. And at first it's like, oh, you can't tell someone not to sit there. Yeah. Like, let someone take my spot for me. But it ended up turning out to be this wonderful woman that I talked to, and that we had a lot in common. And she, saw the world similarly to the way that I see it, with miracles and synchronicities and positivity, and showing up in life in that way. That, like, we invited her to dinner and we made a new friend, and amazing. It kept going too, because then we go to dinner and we end up meeting the owner, and he's super nice, and just kept talking to us, and like we sort of became instant friends with him also, just from carrying around this energy of like, anything is possible, let's see what can happen. And then one more little piece of magic is, and it's just a really small town apparently, because we walked to breakfast the next morning and the owner happened to be driving by, and he honked at us because he saw us and waved. It was like, in what world do you go to a city for one night and get honked at the next day because somebody's saying hi and they recognize you already?
Yeah, love it. How sweet. So,
yeah. Oh, wait, it gets a little bit better because it keeps going. I feel like all of that, like, it never stopped. I was having trouble figuring out where to go for breakfast, and finally settled on somewhere, which was one of the first choices I had initially thought. And I didn't really look at any pictures, and we get there, and their whole message is all about spreading love and positivity. And And it was just like, oh, again, like I'm meant to be right here and share this piece of it. And the food was delicious too, and the coffee was delicious. And I was just like, okay, is it going to end? Did we keep going here?
Exactly.
Like it really did. Like the magic moments
Never
just
ends.
going and going and going. Even later, like we ended up going to a bookstore and I found a book that I had been wanting, like so many pieces of it, just like the whole experience from start to finish was really magical. And I think one of the key things to that too is why and how some things can become or be more magical than others is by really listening to your intuition. So
yes.
I know we've talked about that quite a lot, but I really think that was a big piece of letting magic happen to me. Because, you know, if I would have said, okay, let me forcefully find something by the beach that I might not be 100% okay with, none of those things could have happened. If I didn't make sure that the breakfast place I wanted to go to had both, you know, these types of food options and good coffee, like I wouldn't have been led to this place that is all about love and positivity and all of the same things. Like if I didn't listen to those voices, that voice that's saying, this one isn't for you, keep looking.
That's a small voice.
Exactly. That's really what created, even, you know, I will say with the when the person was sitting in my seat, at first I was like, well, what the heck? And I could have just been like, I don't want to talk to this person. They're sitting in my seat, and what are you trying to
upset
do?
and angry.
Yeah. And instead of like, be open, like really the voice was like, be open and see what could come of this. And magic ensued as a result.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Such an amazing story.
I love it.
I'm so happy you had such a good time, and I know this was really recent, and that was definitely something I was going to point out as well. Is you said you felt into a place, you know, along the coast, because I know you love the water, and it just felt sticky, and that's a very good example. It's really hard to explain, I think, but just that feeling of like, something feels off, like that doesn't feel right this time. And that's your intuition speaking to you. And just the fact that you're following your intuition, and just the other thing that kept coming up as you were telling the story is it just felt like you were being really spacious. And so like allowing there to be possibilities that could show up. And that they just kept showing up and being more and more magical and more fun. And, you know, and then it opens up to even more of those loving feelings within you as well. And so that it just kept adding up and adding up and adding up, and more magic, because you just kept tapping back into your intuition and those loving feelings in your heart as well.
Yes. And I think that's so important too, to like realize how they keep just adding up. Like, I think we're always waiting for like the other shoe to drop for things. And it was like, I didn't even think of that. I wasn't like, when is this going to end? It was just like, let's just keep going. And oh, here's another thing, and keep going. And oh, here's another thing. And there was no sense of like, this is all going to end at some point. And I mean, like that specific trip did at some point finally end. But like there are still magical moments happening every day.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Is there any last reflections or anything else you have that you'd like to share about magic before we close out?
Yeah, I think just being open is one of the most important things. Being open to seeing magic and to believing that it exists in whatever form you see it existing in, and letting it just be. Like it's magic isn't forceful at all. So I think that's the most important. Like Don't try to
You
create
can't
magic.
force magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the only way to create magic literally is just to be open to possibility. I think that's, and you don't know how that'll show up after that, but I think that's one of the main things.
It will show up magically.
Exactly.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then if anyone wants to reach out to you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can go to my website. It's danielledebay.com. They can find me on Instagram at DeADEBay. And yeah, all of my information on how to contact me is on both of those. So that'll be easiest.
And then what do you do? Like, what's your specialty right now?
Yeah. So I'm a self-worth advisor, and what I really focus on is helping people unsettle themselves. So it sounds a little daunting at first, but really it's this idea that you don't have to settle for things and for life, a life that's less than what you deserve and what you want. So I want people to get unsettled so that they can actually have the life that they really desire.
Amazing. I love it. All right. And so just thank you again, Danielle, for being here. And then I want to just remind all of you out there watching that if you do have a magical story to share, you can send me a message. And again, I can read it on video, or you can join me just like Danielle has today and share it yourself. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.